officials to prevent a visa ban for all Ghanaians after formal notification. Also, the ZAR, Bank of Ghana, gives SAC staff employed in 2024 extended probation following earlier decision to terminate en masse. A lot later, we're out of the jurisdiction because security forces have dispersed Togolese protesters demanding the resignation of President Faure Gnassingbé. Hello there, it's the start of the weekend for a lot of people, but we're back here this afternoon with News Central. I am Mawina Igbeta. We're starting this afternoon's bulletin with a bit more numbers for you, breaking down the implications of a looming travel restriction that could affect thousands of Ghanaians. And we know that it all began with a policy review by U.S. immigration authorities targeting countries with high rates of visa overstays and non-compliance with immigration protocols. Now, Ghana has now been named among 36 other nations flagged for possible travel sanctions, a development raising concern among citizens, especially students and professionals planning to travel abroad. In a press briefing yesterday, Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa assured Ghanaians that the ministry is in active talks with the U.S. consulate after receiving official notification of the potential restriction. He advised all travelers to adhere strictly to travel protocols as the government works toward a resolution. Well, a bit of an apology there. That visual, obviously, without the audio accompaniment for it. But essentially, the Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa has been explaining what really the challenge is and what work is being done to seek to begin to remedy the situation and to ensure that the country, after 60 days, which is the time period that the U.S. authorities have given us to resolve these concerns, are all addressed. But let's listen to the minister. Hopefully, we have a better video for you.
The challenge we face really relates to overstays, particularly with students. The students who we have been sending abroad. So students who go on government scholarship and also students who on their own apply to study in the United States of America. They have formally communicated to us that 21% is the default rate. 21% of students who have completed their courses have refused to return, according to US data. They have told us that the allowance, they will permit countries doing below 15%. But if you are doing above 15%, then you will be flagged for further action. that it is important to respect immigration laws of countries. It's important to respect the terms of your visa. And you must always acknowledge that your visa is for a specific purpose. If it's a tourist visa, make sure you are just going there as a tourist. Because even there, we are also not doing too well. We were told that some 7% of those receiving tourist visas are overstaying. So we need to watch that.
That's the Minister, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, providing details there for us. Let's get onto the board right now and begin to immediately paint for you a picture as to what the status is for us as a country when it comes to the conversation of visas having to do with the United States of America. And so this is what we have from 2023. We're yet to get the numbers from 2024 officially. But as of 2023, we know that the total applications for visas which went in stood at some 61,000, and the visas which were issued out of that 61,000 was some 25,000 visas, and so we're seeing an approval rate of some 41%, down by 5% from 2023, and so you expect that immediately that will also mean an upward trajectory in terms of the refusal rate as well. But when we look at the refusal rate, we see a trajectory where it is fast on the increase when you want to compare from 2020 underlies the number of persons who are being refused. We're getting to get an indication that perhaps slightly that's on the upward trajectory. But you recall the minister mentions that a vast majority, or the basis for which reason we've been included on this list of 36 other countries, has to do with student visas and the fact that more than 15% of them are overstaying, which there's a 15% threshold to which when student visas are issued, there's an allowable 15% threshold where the persons can overstay. We've well and truly gone past that, reason for which we're being included on this list, and possibly we could be seeing travel restrictions. When we talk of student visas, we've seen that increase between 2022 and 2023. In fact, it's been a 31.5% increase, and the U.S. Embassy has trumpeted this quite clearly, that when you want to compare Ghana and its size to the rest of the other nations, you tend to realize that we're seeing a lot more of our students getting these student visas granted to them. In fact, $9 million in scholarships is what Ghanaian students have earned over this period. And unfortunately, that overstay is seen as falling to this threshold. The Ghanaians, or Ghana among 36 countries, facing potential travel restrictions. And that's an interesting bit of fact for you as well. They are currently, or could be more, 178,000 plus Ghanaians born resident in the USA. But let's get straight into the education data for you. And we were talking about what the students, which is the F1 visas, what they've looked like. So Ghanaian students, like I've been telling you, we've seen an increase, a 31.5% increase in Ghanaian students receiving visas, and that stands at some 6,468. And if you want to look at that as well, the F1 visas, which is primarily for students, persons going to seek higher learning or education opportunities in the US, we've seen that go up as well, 1,275. And so the trajectory indeed does show that we are enjoying a certain level of privilege. But where's the concern coming from, and why are we seeing all of these red flags being raised about Ghana? And yes, this is the list of countries. Let's stay with Africa, where we're facing that potential risk. There's Angola, Cameroon, Egypt, Ghana obviously being a part of it, Niger, South Sudan as well. The key requirements for compliance, which the U.S. consulate is asking that the Foreign Affairs Ministry sees to a thorough completion or a thorough compliance with, has to do with stronger passport and identity document security, better information sharing, reduced visa overstays, corporate with deportations, which is something that the minister mentions that they've cooperated with quite strongly, and then prevent national involvement in terrorism or anti-US threats. Let's get onto the phone lines right now. Dr. Yao Gebe is a senior research fellow and a lecturer at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. Let's pick his thoughts on really what our government can be doing when Ghanaians are overstaying their visas. Doc, I appreciate you speaking to us. First off, what do you make of this formal notification to ban visa grants to Ghanaians? In the right direction, rather than having decided to take the step by themselves without informing us?
Thank you very much. This is a very thorny issue concerning our country. But let me start off by saying that we are under different administration as far as the United States is concerned. We all know the very conservative, sometimes divisive policies of President Donald Trump. And Ghana, unfortunately for us, is also placed in this category of nations whose citizens can be banned, including our students. And some of them are bonded before going to the United States for studies. And they are actually very much aware of the implications of those bonds. Some go there just for studies, and necessarily there are two things here. Either they go and don't want to come back, or they decide to stay there permanently. And they affect us adversely. And I think that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs must necessarily take drastic actions to curtail this development.
Doug, I'll come to what drastic action can be taken, but there are those who are of the opinion that this is a little too harsh. If you want to look at the reasons being assigned for why we could be facing travel ban. We're on the list with countries who potentially are facing allegations of aiding the activities of terrorism and the likes. This is just students who go to the US and overstay their visas. And there's another school of thought that says that if you want to compare Ghana to other countries who are overstaying their visas by students, then really we shouldn't be on this list to start off with. Where would you stand on an argument like that?
Yes, it is very true that Ghana is being treated harshly by the Trump administration. And comparatively, as we just stated, when some nations are being placed in a category of committing terrorism or their citizens are terrorism, and then Ghana, just the issue of our students or citizens not coming back to home, especially in the U.S. after their education, I think that is rather harsh. But the reality is this. The Trump administration doesn't actually sit down to look into the details of which nation is being banned, which nation is not being banned. That's why I'm saying that our country, unfortunately, will be put in that category of nations who can be banned. And I'm saying that the country led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs must take drastic action to ensure that in the shortest possible time we are removed from that category of nations which can be banned. And then I'm talking of drastic action. For instance, students or citizens who have actually are bonded and they know very well that after the completion of their courses they have to come back home. What is they say of? Or those who have been granted other forms of, the opportunity or the advantage of going to study in the U.S. Why do you continue there? Definitely, what comes to mind is that they want to stay there because they have the opportunity to make money. Because they believe that it is a greener pasture for them to live there permanently. And this one, it cannot be accepted. So our country must do something about it. Apart from the fact that they need to come back home. Here in Ghana, we also must create a conducive environment for our own because we stay back home. Talking about education, what kind of educational opportunities don't exist in Ghana? What kind of sector in terms of areas of specialization don't exist? So if you have been given the opportunity to travel, and it's not that the United States, all over the world, in Europe, Asia, and what have you, quite a number of Ghanaians have traveled and completed their education and come back home. I'm one of them. I came back, so the nation must sit up, the government must sit up and just do the right thing.
And Doc, I just want to get a bit more from you finally on that drastic measures which should be taken. I hear you on the fact that we have to create a conducive environment for our people to be able to thrive here as well. But in the immediacy, the big question on the minds of Ghanaians is, what really can this government do? These people have left the shores of the country, they are overstaying their visas. Where are you going to find them to even begin to want to bring them back? And would they even want to return to start off with?
Let me vary the discussion a little bit. I would suggest that our government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, must sit down with the United States, embassy officials, the representatives of the United States, to discuss the current situation regarding our country. I don't think, you actually made the point, I don't think that we can be placed in the same category of nations or citizens affected of committing terrorism and those who are for reasons like overstaying their stay in the United States in the pursuit of education should be placed in the same category. I think that the government, current government, Ministry of Foreign Affairs must intervene, discuss thoroughly what is going on, and if possible, make sure that our country is removed from that list, and that we make an undertaking to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Diplomatically, I think this can be resolved.
Doc, I appreciate you speaking to us. That's Dr. Yao Gebe. He's a senior researcher and a fellow at the Legon Center, or LESIA, is what we like to call it pretty simply, speaking to us on the possible implications of us continuously being on this list, and what he says is the expectation of the government, in amongst many other things, working extensively to ensure that we get off this list. But let's bring you some other stories this afternoon having to do with the central bank, because the Bank of Ghana has made a U-turn, or call it whatever you want, after management decided to sack over 100 staff employed in December of 2024. While the affected persons have been asked to resume work on Monday, the bank has placed them on an extended probation. Information picked up indicates that the recall decision marks a shift from the bank's earlier plan to reinstate only a few based on operational needs and skills requirements. Instead, all affected persons have been given a second chance while being monitored. There's been concerns in recent times over politically motivated appointments, which has become a routine in some top government institutions, and how it's become a cycle, really, after every power dynamics, or in terms of power shifting hands. Let's try and subject this to a bit more analysis for you, let's get a bit more perspective into this, and speak to Imani Africa, Imani Ghana's President Franklin Kujo, who has a few words to share in relation to this. But there's been a lot of reaction following. We know that the minority, they had cause to hold a news conference in the foyer of Parliament. Their leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, as well, had cause to speak to this particular matter on the floor of the House, resulted in some form of debate as well. But there's been a U-turn of some sort. What is influencing this, we're not quite sure, because we know the earlier position of the bank was that based on the needs at the facility or at the institution, they were going to handpick and select just a few to ensure that they meet certain requirements or specifications with respect to the job that needs done. But now we're understanding all 100 of them have been asked to return. What does this mean? Are we seeing a shift? There are those who make the argument that, look, if indeed this particular administration is resetting all things, then the cycle of sacking persons believed to be politically inclined or have been brought into institutions after a particular point of time, that needs to come to an end. Let's speak to Labour consultant Austin Game to examine what the labour laws possibly could say on probations, and whether or not this could be a ruse of some sort, and then subsequently they are terminated again. Mr. Game, I appreciate you speaking to us always. Educate us a bit more, Mr. Game, on what we're seeing happen. they initially saw their contracts terminated. They've been asked to return and been put on extended probation. Does our labor laws allow that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, to be honest with you, probation, when you complete your probation and it is found that you have the capacity to upgrade your capabilities to perform, you can be given an extended probationary period to enable you to upskill or be prepared to be able to perform your duties. And if you are found to be okay, fine. Otherwise, then you are out.
So, no harm being done, but there are those who make the argument that to the point where the appointments were terminated, on what grounds are they being now asked to return and for their probations to be extended?
That's why I said that it initially be, maybe you can call it some misjudgment of a kind, but normally, if you complete your probation and you are not fit for purpose, you are terminated. And if it is assumed that you have the capacity, except that you are not been able to measure enough to the requirements of the organization, you can have extended. We have a PEP, we have a performance enhancement plan that is given to all working people. But in the case of people who are on probation, you can be given an extension to enable you to merit the requirements of the organization. And if you are found to be fit, fine. Otherwise, then you are out for good.
Mr. Game, I want to wear some political lenses at this point because we know that these appointments were terminated because they were deemed to have been politically motivated. Would anybody be wrong when they make the argument that, well, their probations have been extended, but they could well and truly see their appointment terminated after this probation ends? Will that be a fair analysis of what it is that we're seeing play out?
Well, I know Ghanaians are very much into partisan politics. We like to, everything we paint it to the brush of partisan politics. But this is business. And therefore, I would want to refrain from the traditional partisan politics of it. If it comes to HR or industrial relations, it's not supposed to be so. Right. You have to be genuine and very intentional about whatever you are doing. And so if the HR division of the Bank of Ghana sees it fit to recommend extension of the probationary period, I think it's well and good, and it's good for the people concerned. So I want to urge everybody to accept it as such and leave it to that extent, and let the people have the chance to go through a new process. If they've gone through, fine, so they're employed. Maybe we should forget about the partisan politics of it.
And just lastly, for these persons, this 100 persons who've seen their appointments reinstated, put on extended probation, what course of action can they be taking while this probation is on to ensure that they do not see these appointments terminated again? What should they be doing in their offices up until the time this probation comes to an end?
Well, they definitely have got officers who are their supervisors, if you like, their people who guide them. And if they are being guided and they found to be okay, fine. If they are not okay, they will definitely be terminated. I think that's how it will be. So for now, it's in their best interest to be sober and allow the system to work. They have assigned work, roles they have to play. If they play it well, they'll be confirmed. If you don't play it well, you'll certainly be taken out.
Right then. Thank you very much. Mr. Game, let's switch the lines to the other one, because Franklin Kujo is the president of Imani Africa as well, as joined us via the telephone lines. Mr. Kujo, your thoughts on this U-turn? Many were of the opinion that, yes, politically motivated appointment, but the manner in which they were let go, not the best of look if this government says they are resetting the country.
Well, I expected a lot of explanations in keeping with the reset agenda. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
All right. Well, you see, I raised a preliminary objection because I felt we didn't have enough light. You see, public sector work should not be shrouded in any secrecy, because we pay them. I mean, you and I, as taxes, pay them. We should know the criteria with which they were used to, they were selected, they were interviewed, and eventually appointed. If the BOG had put out all of this, because we need to know, you can't just say that, oh, they are ended their probation and their probation showed that they were not qualified. Well, it doesn't lie in your mouth or hand to say that. To carry the public along, you need to do this so that your political opponents will not accuse you of doing things that they themselves have done in a way. I mean, this merry-go-round, we don't want it again. The NPP did it, and I strongly believe there would never have been any reversal under an NPP administration under Nanadu. He would never have done it. So at least we should thank whoever, like the BOG guy. He's a serious guy, sensible guy. I mean, I love him. And I know that he was maltreated under the NPP. And he doesn't want to be seen to be doing that again, which is why I'm sure he's taking this back seat. But it is important going forward. We need to know exactly how these people are appointed. No, we can't live in a country where we don't know what people just get recruited, appointed, doing exactly what. We need to know what their work schedule is, how it fits into the overall productivity of the institution, and how that fits into the overall productivity of the country. Otherwise, my brother, they're not going anywhere. Why should the public sector be living at the expense of everybody else? Look at Ghana Gas. You know, you go there, Ghana Gas is supposed to be about 150 people. There are about 1,200. You ask yourself, are those people also producing gas themselves in addition to the gas we need? It doesn't make sense.
Should this be sparking an audit, possibly? This argument you're making, should it be sparking an audit of the staff strength of these respective state agencies, and really what productivity is being brought to bear to all these individuals who are being paid?
Well, but that's exactly what I'm discussing with you. We need to, at this juncture, we need to go back to the very table. This whole reset agenda, I get increasingly happy. I'll probably be more happier if we drill down exactly what people are doing in various ministries. What exactly are they doing? Why are they employed? You know, my good friend Ken Oforiata had a separate appointment regime. He had all kinds of people from private sector he brought to us to the overburdening public sector. And these people were being paid almost a Wall Street type of fees. Why? Why should we do that? What exactly did they do? At the end of the day, what happened? Junk-rated economy. We need to start asking serious questions. We need to start knowing exactly how people are appointed. Even the Chief Justice issue. I mean, I would have thought that we should go the Kenyan way. So in Kenya, the president doesn't just get up and appoint anybody he feels that should be Chief Justice. That these persons the Judicial Council actually selects about 4 or 5. They are subjected to intense public questioning, live TV, and after that, everybody knows who did well, who didn't do well. They narrow down, and then the president is just giving the person to appoint. That's all. The president cannot say anything. So that we don't see this dance that we are experiencing. But the bottom line, my brother, is that let's start questioning people. Even these so-called 150 people, 100 people we've asked that they should be called back. Let's know exactly what their roles are. What are they performing? What exactly are they adding to the bottom line of the Bank of Ghana? You can't be running an institution, run it in debt, and then be employing more people at the same time. It doesn't make sense. But you see, if these are the things the governor wants us to know, they should walk us along with it. Thank you.
I appreciate you speaking to us. That's Franklin Kujo, is the president of Imani Africa, speaking to us on the very latest in relation to this U-turn, if you like to call it that, of the 100 people officially or initially having the appointments terminated, but that being reversed. And it's a very important point Mr. Franklin Cudjoe makes about an audit of some sort, getting to understand the value of this entire workforce, what they bring, what they add. Very important conversation, I'm sure. We'll continue to pick up on that subsequently. But we're moving away from this and taking you to Parliament because the first Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, has inaugurated Ghana's Parliamentary Friendships Association with 42 countries. This is a move that is aimed at deepening the country's legislative diplomacy and global engagement towards strategic partnerships and promoting peace. With the launch, Ghana's Parliament can have effective dialogues with the other 42 legislatures and enter into bilateral and multilateral relations with them. Christian Yali, what's there for us, is joining us right now with details from that event and also what we're expecting from the plenary session today. Christian, what does this inauguration mean for legislative democracy in the country?
All right, Eric. So what we know is that this is something that has been in existence even from the 8th Parliament. And so it is not something that is new per se. It is just an opportunity for Ghana's legislative body to enhance the image of the country on the global front. So you have about 42 other countries or legislatures or parliament that are forming partnerships or associations with Ghana. It means that it is a good stop opportunity for Ghana to deepen aid, strategic partnerships, and also to deepen bilateral and even multilateral relations with these other countries. What it also means is that it presents a lot of traveling opportunities or travel opportunities for the MPs to visit or tour those other countries to learn some of the best practices from the countries like the UK, the US. You have other African countries like Kenya, among others, who feature in a tall list of countries that are making this partnership with Ghana. And so during the launch, the chairman of the management committee of the Parliamentary Friendship Association, Kweku Rekethagen, made the point that this is an opportunity for MPs to learn and to grab some knowledge through it, especially those who would be selected to work on the association or to work on the committee. Other leaders of the House, including Mahama Ayariga, the majority leader, equally make a point, and even the Speaker or the First Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, makes a point that we should not, or the MPs should not just take it as just a travel, a means of traveling to other countries, but should look at a way of positioning the country very well on the global scale to ensure that all the benefit that the Parliament of Ghana can get are well derived from. Eric.
Right, and Chris, do we know if these other legislative bodies were present during this inauguration? Just briefly, then we can get on to what is happening in Parliament today.
Exactly, Eric. Let me just tie the two into one. So, yes, there were heavily represented members of the diplomatic corps who were here. You had consular heads as well as high commissioners and even ambassadors who were here in their numbers representing the various states during the inauguration, which happened earlier in Parliament. But just to switch quickly to what it is that is happening currently on the floor, we know that the leader of government business, the majority leader, Mahama Ayariga, has presented the business statement for next week, the week which is ending on Thursday, July 3rd, which basically gives a view of the number of questions that are to be asked certain ministers scheduled to appear before the House. And that is what has gradually dovetailed into a bigger conversation with the minority, raising concerns about some key issues that have come up, especially concerning the limited or the issue of the COVID-19 resurgence on the University of Ghana campus, which they believe the health minister or even officials of the school must be invited to come to answer questions. And then you have that thorny issue of the rise in electricity tariff, that 2.45% increase, which they want the energy minister, who was to actually appear before the House this week but has to be rescheduled to next week, to come to answer those questions and also other pertinent issues that have come up. And then again, that issue of the viral video in which you see some LGBTQ activists kissing under the Ghana's coat of arms came up. But then the speaker had to overrule some of the MPs because he was of the view that some of them, instead of making statement or comment towards the business statement that has been presented, they were seeking to ask questions to the minister, which he observed was not the right channel for them to do that. And so that is some of the things. And even the issue of the Bank of Ghana dismissals of the staff, it has also featured prominently with the Minority Chief Whip Frank Anodompreh making a point that the BOG must be invited to come over to answer questions, and even the finance minister. And one of the other issues is the disbursements or the disbursement of the district assembly's common fund, which he believes has delayed and is causing a lot of trouble for assemblies. In his own words, assemblies are crying under the current regime. There is interesting development in the House as of now, Eric, with members of Parliament who are currently on their feet. I fail to appreciate exactly what is causing that, but maybe we can quickly transition there to get an appreciation of what is happening. Eric.
Right, Chris, we'll buy you some time while you try and do that for us. That's my colleague Christian Yali, who's explaining to us that there could be some development fast building on the floor of the House because a number of MPs are up on their feet. We cannot tell immediately what's causing that. He's trying to get an understanding because he's just stepped briefly out. Chris, you can go and try and get us those details. We'll be with you again shortly to catch the full details of really what's happening on the floor of the House. But that's my colleague Christian Yali, who is in Parliament for us this afternoon. And so he's walked us through what we're to expect. There are those who are asking that a number of ministers appear before the House next week to answer some questions. Energy or electricity tariffs expected to go up. But we know that about a few weeks ago, the controversial energy sector levy bill was amended to impose a 1 cedi on every liter of fuel purchased by Ghanaians. This, the finance minister said, was meant to support payment of arrears in the sector and reduce legacy debt. Presidential advisor on economy, Seth Terkper, he's been explaining the timing of the bill, saying it was crucial. He spoke on TV3 New Day.
Right. And the budget comes with a lot of measures. But the other ways of also introducing, an economic policy, a social policy or whatever, in between budgets, is to go to Parliament by law. So it's a legitimate means of going to Parliament, if there's an urgency around the issue. So the issue is why, was a particular cost taken out in calculating, the tariff. If this had come to the notice, early, they would have been added to the other measures in the budget at the time it was being read. But you don't also have to wait for another budget. So there are precedents to this thing all the time. So I think the timing was not meant to hide something and read the budget and after. No, after it's a PURC. And the minister said, his assessor has explained, that this is structural. And actually the home for this policy, for its ultimate correction, is PURC.
As former finance minister and now presidential advisor on the economy, speaking to my colleague Roland Walker on TV3's New Day earlier on this morning. We're going for our very first break here on News Central. When we return, we're taking a short trip to neighboring Togo because there's been unrest of some nature there, where the young people there are demanding the resignation of their president, Fonya Sengbi. We have the details, plus try and connect with the journalists there for you to get an understanding of really what the situation is as we speak. This is News Central. Please stay with us. Now, let's bring you some more stories because Moving Health has extended 5 of its 4th-generation tricycle ambulances to communities in the Katsina-Nankana West District. This is towards improving healthcare access in rural communities in the Upper East region.
One major challenge in the Upper East region is emergency health transportation.
Referring the patient to the nearby district hospital is always a challenge because, one, our road network is not good at all. The terrain is actually very bad. Also, most of the people who refer, it's very difficult for them to come by means of transportation, which is a very huge burden on the referred clients.
Moving Health, through the Country Innovation Platform, under the Ghana Health Service, with funding from USAID and partners, presented 5 state-of-the-art tricycle ambulances to support. The effort to ensure medical assistance promptly reaches those in remote and underserved areas. Country Director of Moving Health, Isaac Amuakwansa, sheds light on the project.
In this ambulance, we have the ambulance telemetry system, which helps in collecting information about the rides the ambulance is taking, and to help the healthcare providers to know where referral cases are coming from, the time taken to the hospital, and together with all this information that we aggregate on our dashboard, the healthcare providers are able to make informed decisions.
Kajolo, Katiwu, Woro, Mirigu and Bosungu, all under the Katsina-Nankana West District, are the 5 beneficiary communities. Upper East Regional Chief Nursing and Midwifery Officer, Ananko Bernard, was thankful.
Basically, you realize that the health sector, without the transport system, we cannot make any impact. Moving Health coming in to support with the ambulance system is going to help a lot, in the sense that it will help in reducing mortalities as far as maternal and child health is concerned.
And we're taking you out of the country right now because security forces used tear gas to disperse hundreds of young protesters who blocked roads in Togo's capital, Lome, demanding the resignation of longtime leader Faure Gnassingbé. Hundreds of protesters set up concrete block barricades on Thursday in several neighborhoods of Lome, with some burning tires and throwing projectiles at security forces. Police dispersed hundreds of the protesters with tear gas and arrested several people in the neighborhood, an opposition stronghold. And we know that the protests come as Mr. Gnassingbé continues to face increasing calls from critics to resign over changes to the country's constitution, which is expected to keep him in power for a lifetime. And civil society groups and social media influencers, they've called for the protests to go on for the 26th to the 28th of this month, after the government clamped down on protests earlier this month. We'll return to the subject matter a bit shortly for you, but we know, like I was telling you about, that my colleague Christian Yali, he was reporting of some development on the floor of the House. We want to just do a quick detour to him right now and get an understanding as to really what's happening on the floor of the House. Then we can bring that to you. Christian is joining us via the phones this time. Christian, what's happening on the floor of the House? Let's take you there right now. Let's take you to the floor of the House.
Let me appeal to you. I know that you don't feel happy about how the process has been truncated today. But this morning we had agreed that because today is Friday and we intend to always close early on Friday so that we can start departing early to our constituencies, we shouldn't go beyond 2 o'clock. That was what we had agreed among ourselves. And I remember that when we were having a banter about it, one of us in this chamber told the Speaker that it will be your responsibility to manage the time and make sure that we actually operate within the 2 o'clock rule. And when we're leaving the conclave, that person also made it very clear that the discussions that took place never took place. Oh, I haven't mentioned your name, Habib. Why are you laughing as if? Why are you laughing as if? Habib, why are you laughing as if you are the one I'm talking about? Habib, why are you laughing as if you are the one I'm talking about? But there was an agreement to do our usual Friday politics, and then we can. In fact, we even agreed that there should be no questions. We agreed that there should be no questions.
Let's go to Christian Yale via the phone lines right now. Christian, you are reporting of an activity on the floor of the House. What happened?
Exactly. So what we know is that, like I indicated earlier, today the Minister of Energy and Green Transition was to appear to answer urgent questions, but the agreement leadership had in conclave was that shouldn't be taken today because they sought to close early. And so after Mahama Yariga presented the business statement, the understanding during the time I was doing my earlier report was that about 7 members on the minority side were on their feet to contribute to the budget statement and to seek to make recommendations as to what should be added and the kind of the various ministers who are to be invited over next week to answer to questions. And the Speaker, who is presiding, the First Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, sought to translate that process all in the vein of saving time so that they are able to consider the other items on the order paper. And that is what resulted in the minority MPs being on their feet to register their displeasure at that decision. Subsequently, their leader, Alexander Fiyomakin, was on his feet to make a case that when it comes to situations of this nature, there shouldn't be any form of restriction as to which numbers to take, especially when decisions have been taken earlier. And so just a while ago, you had the leader of the House, Mahama Yariga, make that plea that the other members, his colleagues on the other side, on the minority side, should agree to let things slide so that they are able to save time and then move ahead quickly. It's just a matter of the minority MPs wanting to have enough takes or more of their members contributing to the budget statement for next week, and the Speaker seeking to restrict the numbers, which resulted in the earlier misunderstanding that caused them to be on their feet chanting some patriotic songs. We have the First Deputy Minority Whip, Habibi Idris, on his feet right now. He was on his feet making a lot of suggestions as to the MPs, the ministers who are to be invited next week when all of that ensued. We can probably go back to him to get his take on what has happened so far.
Right. Thank you very much, Christian, for those details. Let's return to Togo because I was telling you security forces had used tear gas to disperse hundreds of young protesters who have been demanding the resignation of President for Nyasingbe. Let's take you to Togo right now. David Morgan Asoba Metonji is the director of the Morgan Training and is a geopolitical expert as well. He's joined us via Zoom to get an understanding as to really what's happening. Morgan, thank you very much for speaking to us. Can you briefly tell us what's happening in Togo now? Because the reports say the military and the police as well have dispersed these young protesters.
Well, it will be quite difficult to say what is happening with exactitude because I'm not within the geography of what is occurring. But it is clear that when you monitor the news report, it's obvious that something far close to what could be considered as a very serious protest turning into a very nasty situation is occurring. And that depends on who is watching and how the person is appreciating. From an observer landscape, I think it is the normal trend of the people that are finding a way to protest against dynamics that seems to not meet their expectation. And it is also when these meet with the determination of the leadership to maintain order, it gives a situation whereby casualties could easily appear to be very sensitive and critical. So currently, the situation is somehow ongoing. It is difficult to have relevant and trustworthy news report that is very close to the reality on the ground. But what is clear is that what is going on is not constructive in terms of human resources and also in terms of management of the people when they are expressing themselves against a dynamic.
And what's been the government's response, if any, to these protests, which we're understanding is entering its second day?
Please come again with the question.
I'm asking if the government has in any way or form made a statement about the protests currently happening.
Not according to what I've heard so far from the news report. But when it comes to government response, I think a normal government, well equipped, will not come out and give a certain response right now, communicating with exactitude on what is happening. It requires some time to get the right information about what is happening, to question all the key stakeholders, if not the key actors of what is happening, before coming out with a statement. So it is it will be quite normal to have no statement from the government so far. But obviously, there will be statement from the civil society movement, from the people that are protesting, and every single other person concerned.
But quickly, does it look like the president will yield to these protests, the latest of which we're seeing now?
Please, I'm having challenges getting you. Would you mind coming again?
I'm asking if the president, Fonya Sengbe, is looking like he will want to heed to the demands of these young people or even make changes again to the constitution.
You know, this is a very delicate situation when you look at it. From a legal perspective, there is no need for the president to yield in the demands and make sure that these young people protesting are satisfied, because everything occurs within the framework of the parliament and within the framework of every single legal, let's say, requirement. So it is up to the political parties somehow to not have been able to be part of the discussion and to express part of the willingness of the people. But when you look at it from a society perspective, from the people perspective, it is quite normal for a leadership that is highly caring of the people to find a way to take into consideration the willingness or the expression of the people, and especially of these young men and women, because whether you like it or not, the African youth is the most dynamic one in the world, and this is the part of the population that should not be neglected. So I believe the president with his advisors will definitely come to make a decision based on the option they want to take. Are they going to be stuck to the legal framework that has been respected and maintain their position, or are they going to listen to the voice of the people through these young ones and find a different approach to the current situation? This is up to the leadership, and this is based on what appears to be highly relevant to them.
Morgan, thank you very much. That's Morgan speaking to us. He's a director of a training institute for experts on geopolitics, speaking to us from Togo, where protests are continuing. They're demanding the resignation of their president there, and a subject matter we're promising here on TV3 to follow through for you and bring you latest details as and when they do come through. That's it from us for this week here on News Central. I am Mawina Egbeta. We're back again next week. When I say we, myself and Kemeni, we're back again next week with more news for you. But if you stay with us, there's a lot more news on 3news.com. Many thanks for watching.